Jewish Meditation by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, a practical guide.
Chapter 18, Remolding the Self. One of the most important meditative movements in Judaism is associated with the Musser school, founded by Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, 1810 through 1883. Musser, self-perfection, was always an important element in Judaism. Important texts on the subject were published as early as the 10th century. The Musser movement, however, made self-perfection its primary focus. The movement taught that a person should continually strive to grow spiritually, ethically, and morally throughout the course of his lifetime. Interpersonal relationships were given a high priority in the Musser movement. It was not enough to be able to experience the divine, one also had to be able to get along with others in the best possible manner. Anger, hatred, revenge, gossip, and jealousy were seen as bad habits that could stunt a person's spiritual growth. The premise was that if we grow in our relationship to God, we should also grow in our ability to relate in a positive way to our fellow human beings. The Musser school thus strove to make every individual into a saint in every sense of the word. People were taught to be sensitive to their own shortcomings and were encouraged to create personal programs to rectify them one by one. To some extent, the Musser movement was a reaction to the Hasidic movement. Hasidism began as a mystical movement. In order to climb high spiritual mountains, experienced guides, or Rebbis, were needed. In some Hasidic circles, however, the guide became more important than the mountain. Many Hasidim regarded their Rebbe as the paradigm of the saintly man and lived the righteous life vicariously through him. The Musser movement developed among the Mitnagdim, opponents of the Hasidic movement. Musser schools taught that it was not enough to live the righteous life through a master. Every individual had an obligation to strive to live the righteous life in his own right. Beyond that, the Musser movement offered a program through which every person could gradually perfect himself. There is an extensive Musser literature in Hebrew. Some of the most important Musser works, such as Path of the Upright, Mesilat Yesharim, by Moses Chaim Luzaro, and Ways of the Righteous, Orchot Tzadikim, Anonymous, have been translated into English. The first part of the Musser program was to make a daily habit of reading a lesson from a classical Musser work. After reading the lesson, one was to spend a short period of time contemplating it and relating it to one's own life. As the individual began to advance, this contemplation became a meditation. One would read a lesson from a classical Musser text on how to improve the ethical, moral, and religious quality of one's life, then meditate on this lesson for 20 to 30 minutes. This is a simple type of meditation similar to the one described in Chapter 3, where I discussed meditating on how to rearrange your life. It is a meditation in which one considers a particular aspect of one's life and thinks about ways to improve it. In meditations such as these, extraneous thoughts are gently pushed out of the mind. Some authorities, such as the Baal Shem Tov, however, maintained that a person should pay attention to extraneous thoughts, since they could provide clues as to what direction to take. One may wish to make mental notes of these extraneous thoughts and then analyze them to see how to make use of them to help attain one's goals. The program of self-improvement could include more than just moral issues. The Musser schools saw their method as a way of becoming a more effective human being. Problems such as shyness, indecision, lack of motivation, and the like could also be helped through Musser methods. The second part of the Musser program consists of a mantra-like repetition of the concept one is working on. For example, a person may have a tendency to gossip and want to break this habit. He may realize that gossip is harmful to others and morally wrong, and that it is forbidden by the Torah commandment, "Do not go as a talebearer among your people," Leviticus 19:16. The method of breaking the gossip habit would be to take the biblical verse, "Do not go as a talebearer among your people," and repeat it every day for a 20 to 30-minute period like a mantra. As one works on it, the message is gradually absorbed and the self-control necessary to avoid gossip is attained. Another effective technique is described by Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. This technique consists in speaking to various parts of the body. If a person wishes to change a certain trait, he can talk to the part of the body associated with that trait, and in this way change his actions. Taking the above example of gossip, a person could use Rabbi Nachman's technique and speak to his tongue, telling it never to say anything against another person. If one does this for a fixed amount of time every day, this too can be an effective form of meditation. Let us say that you want to lose weight. You can use musser and other meditative techniques in various ways. You can simply use the phrase, "I am going to lose weight," as a mantra. You can speak to your body and tell it that you want it to be slim. You can also use an imaging technique. Imagine yourself slim, what you would look like, and how it would feel to be carrying less weight. Gradually, your self-image will start to change. You can speak to your mouth, telling it not to eat so much, and to your stomach, telling it to crave less food. A combination of techniques can be effective even in overcoming lifelong habits. There are several hints that the Musser schools give to make any self-improvement program more effective. The first is not to try to make too many changes at once. A Talmudic teaching, "If one tries to grasp too much, one grasps nothing," is taken as a watchword. Better to be successful in making small changes than to fail at making big ones. If one succeeds in making a small change in one's life, it is easy to build on this success. The important message is that success breeds success and failure breeds failure. People often try to effect a change in their lifestyle and make the attempt many times only to meet with failure. This is particularly true of people who have tried to lose weight or give up smoking. Take as an example the person who resolves to quit smoking. He keeps his resolution for a few weeks, but then feels that he cannot go for the rest of his life without a cigarette and reverts back to his bad habit. He has experienced a failure, which makes stopping all the more difficult the next time around. After a number of such failures, people give up and feel that the habit in question is beyond their control. The musser approach would be to give up smoking for a specified period of time, say 30 days. At the end of the 30-day period, one could begin smoking again. This is the key to success. During this 30-day period, a person would not have to confront the fact that he will never taste a cigarette again, or that he will have to maintain this level of self-control for years to come. The time of abstinence is manageable because it has a limit. The point of this technique is that at the end of the 30-day period, a person is free to choose whether or not to begin smoking again. If he resumes smoking, he does not have to feel like a failure. Quite the contrary, he has been successful in maintaining his 30-day abstinence and therefore has a success upon which to build. Later, he can stop for another 30-day period. After doing this a number of times, he may find that the desire to smoke has waned. Of course, at the end of any of these 30-day periods, he may decide not to resume smoking. If one 30-day period was a success, the second 30-day period will be even easier. By taking one 30-day period after another, a person can continually weaken the habit until it ceases to exist. This is particularly true if, during the period of abstinence, one uses the musser meditational techniques discussed earlier. One can use the expression, "I want to stop smoking," as a mantra to help strengthen one's will, so that by the end of the 30-day period, the desire to smoke will be diminished. Other meditational techniques can also be helpful. The idea of using 30-day periods is a very powerful tool in spiritual growth. Many moral or ethical habits are easier to break than smoking or eating habits, since in the latter one must deal with the body as well as the mind. Many bad moral or ethical habits can be overcome in a 30-day period. You can work on a relatively large number of character traits over the course of years and thus continually grow both spiritually and morally. You can, in fact, remold yourself into the good and righteous person you wish to be. Where you are is not as important as where you are heading. If you are willing to devote your life to continued growth, there are virtually no limits to the levels you can reach.